Okay, so this is a 7-inch grinder with an old pad on it. And I'm going to grind this little thing with it. I'm going to mount it in a vise, and I'm going to show you guys how to remove these scratch marks, remove minor imperfections from metal finishing, and put a buff on the panel, right? Okay, so that was just a standard grind. All the scratches you can see are going in the same direction, and I don't quite have all the file marks out yet, so it needs another pass, but you can see I'm putting very light pressure, so only the grit is doing the work and not the machine. You don't want to push, and you can see that it's not putting a lot of heat into the panel, it's not throwing lots of sparks, and it's not going to warp the thin metal, right? So I'm going to go back over it one more time, see if I can get rid of those file marks. Okay, now I'm going to put the crosshatch in. We do the crosshatch pattern so that it looks like the face of a file, so the body filler can really bite into the surface, so the scratches aren't going in one direction, they're going in two directions. And how you do that is you hold the grinder, like I was, on about a 5 or 10 degree angle, and I'm using just this part here of the pad, just that part there of the pad. So I'm not holding it flat because that'll cause it to dance. I'm just using a small little part of the grinding discs by holding it on an angle at about 5 degrees. It's also important to note when I come to the edge, I make sure the disc is sanding off of the edge. And when I come to this side, you'll notice that I'm making sure it's sanding along the edge. I never want to go onto the edge like this or onto the edge like this because it'll grab it. See how it's grabbing it? And this way it just glides off, right? So now I'm going to, instead of using this angle over here, this 5 to 10 degree angle, I'm going to move it over to this side and use this 5 to 10 degree angle and put the crosshatch on. Now, if you look at the scratch pattern now, it looks like X's all the way across. This is for maximum adhesion to the body filler and making sure that it'll have the best grip to the metal. Now, I'll show you again how to do the edges when you get to an edge to buff or to grind off of the edge. See, it grabbed the edge there and messed it up, and it grabbed the edge. The only way to do this bottom part off of this way, because all grinders always grind or spin in a clockwise direction, is you have to use the back of the pad like this. And then it's going off of the edge instead of on, and it can't grind like that. And you can see the nice little X's in there. That's the crosshatch pattern we're looking for. And I'll do the rest of this whole surface so you can see how I go about doing that. See, over on this side, I have to use the bottom of the pad, so it's going off of the edge and not on. Now I can do the middle. Now, if you're doing a rocker panel, you can run into a situation like this where the grinder can't do this bottom part effectively with the top edge because it's going to grab, say this is the pinch weld on the bottom of it, so you have to use the back of the pad, like heel the grinder in. And you can see that nice, and I grabbed the pad again on the end. You have to be careful when it has sharp edges like this. You can see the nice crosshatch pattern, right? Now watch what happens if I don't move it and I hold it against the panel flat. See how it goes all crazy? That's because I'm holding the pad totally flat, and it makes it grab on different parts of the pad and it dances. You'll lose control of the grinder and you can hurt yourself. That's why it's so important to hold it on a very, very slight angle. You've already seen what happens when it grabs the pad. You'll lose chunks of grinding disc like this and they fly off. It's one of the main reasons when you're cutting or grinding you have to wear a face shield when you do it. And then the last thing I'll show you is what happens if you don't move. So see how the sparks come flying out everywhere? It's from not moving, it's overheating the panel. Now I have a spot where the panel turns like a goldy color, and then it turns, that's actually heating my finger right through my glove, it's so hot. And now the panel is warped. You can't do that on the vehicle body anywhere, or it burns the rust proofing off the back side, so then it rots from the inside out, and it also warps the panel so that it's not straight anymore. It's going to take more body filler to fill it up, and then holding it in one spot will thin the metal as well. So we do this mostly, it happens when grinding MIG welds, but even when you're grinding MIG welds, you have to keep the grinder moving the whole time, slowly take it down, and never throw sparks like that, and never let it turn brown or blue, because you're gonna ruin it, right? It'll affect the strength of the panel, the thickness of the panel, and it'll warp it all up so it's all wobbly. It's no good. And that's the quick grinding demo. I'm going to throw this in the garbage now because I pretty much ruined it. It was almost ruined before too. And you can see I'm not the first person to catch this pad. It's got a couple of chunks out of it, right? Most grinders don't take this Velcro sandpaper. They take the one with a hole in the back and it's held on with a big nut. This is what we use for stripping built up body filler and paint off. And I believe this grinder is actually, no, it's an angle sander. It is a grinder. I was thinking it's a buffer, but it's actually a grinder. So there you go, grinding with an actual grinder on metal, what to do, what not to do. You got to be careful. The thing is big, it's powerful, it flings a lot of sparks. You can create a fire, it has too much noise, you can get a spark, you can hurt yourself, you can wind up loose clothing and things that are dangling down. But it's a staple in the body shop. We have to use these things big or small, right? Common 2-inch, 4-inch, 7-inch. Okay? That's it for how to grind with Mr. Chudy.